You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Virtual teams bring unique challenges because distance and time zones magnify even small cracks in process. Misunderstandings that would be caught quickly in a co-located team can linger for hours or days. That is why strong artifacts and norms matter more than constant meetings. The core tools of virtual collaboration include working agreements that set expectations for responsiveness, handoff checklists that reduce ambiguity, and a single source of truth that eliminates version drift. These are the guardrails that allow distributed teams to function smoothly without burning out. PMI expects project managers to design and reinforce these systems rather than defaulting to more meetings. Inclusion is another critical layer. Virtual teams must account for differences in culture, language, and accessibility. Ethical project managers ensure that language is leveled, avoiding slang, acronyms, or idioms that can confuse across cultures. Meetings are camera optional, respecting bandwidth and comfort. Summaries are captured clearly in writing, so people in all time zones can stay aligned asynchronously. Inclusion in this context means not just inviting everyone to a meeting, but ensuring that everyone has equal access to decisions and clarity. These practices build trust across distance. Evidence closes the loop. Decision logs record what was agreed, so no one has to rely on memory or hearsay. Access records show that the right people had the right tools at the right time. Artifacts are updated in a single place, so there is no confusion about which document is "final." When these evidence trails are maintained, global collaboration becomes transparent and defensible. PMI's exam will test whether you choose informal shortcuts like send an email update or disciplined practices like update the decision log. The correct choice is always evidence-based alignment. The first scenario addresses a common virtual team failure, time zone handoffs breaking down. The Asia team completes work, but when the US team begins their day, they redo the work because acceptance criteria were unclear and version control drifted. The constraints are pressing, the release window is tight, and a regulatory review is approaching. This is not simply an inconvenience. It threatens compliance and schedule. The artifacts to consult are the acceptance criteria template, the shared definition of done, and the repository standards. These define what done means, how it must be documented, and how files are managed. Options here reflect different instincts. Option A is to add another daily meeting across all time zones, increasing synchronous time. Option B is to publish an asynchronous acceptance criteria template with examples and non-examples, enforce repository standards, and set a short overlap review window. Option C is to appoint a liaison but keep the process unchanged. Option D is to delay the release and ask teams to work longer hours. PMI's perspective is clear. Option B is the professional choice. It addresses the systemic issue with async clarity, artifact discipline, and minimal overlap. Adding meetings, Option A, simply shifts the pain to time zones, forcing people into late night or early morning calls. It does not fix unclear acceptance criteria. Assigning a liaison, Option C, treats a symptom rather than the system. It places a burden on one person rather than improving clarity for all. Delaying the release and extending work hours, Option D, burns teams without addressing root causes. Only Option B builds a sustainable fix: async-first clarity, minimal overlap for checks, and strict repository discipline. PMI's exam rewards structural solutions, not temporary patches. Artifacts prove this fix. Acceptance criteria templates with examples and non-examples remove ambiguity. Repository standards enforce one source of truth, eliminating version drift. Overlap review notes confirm that both regions checked alignment before proceeding. The decision log records the adjustment, ensuring stakeholders understand why the handoff system was refined. This creates a trail that auditors and teams can trust. PMI expects you to recognize that process artifacts, not extra meetings, are the anchor of distributed teamwork. When thinking about predictive project variance, the same principle applies. Instead of backlog items and acceptance criteria, you would rely on document control systems and formal sign-offs. In both cases, the idea is the same: clarity plus evidence. Whether predictive or agile, verbal agreements and ad hoc fixes lead to drift, while disciplined artifact management sustains alignment. PMI situational stems often disguise this point, offering quick meeting options. The professional answer always reinforces artifact-based clarity. Pitfalls in virtual teams are common. The more meetings reflex is the biggest trap. It feels responsive but leads to fatigue, exclusion, and diminishing returns. Tool sprawl is another. Teams create shadow trackers in spreadsheets or chat tools, undermining the single source of truth. Undocumented decisions leave future teams guessing what was agreed. These pitfalls are tempting but destructive. PMI's exam will often test whether you avoid them. The heuristic is simple: standardize asynchronous communication, add brief overlaps only where necessary, and maintain a single truth for artifacts. The first scenario teaches that virtual success depends less on working harder and more on working smarter. By setting async-first standards, defining acceptance criteria clearly, enforcing repository discipline, and documenting everything once, you turn time zones into an advantage rather than a liability. PM, I want you to see that professional project management is not about heroic fixes, but about designing systems that prevent problems before they occur. This scenario reinforces responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty through clarity and discipline. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthored.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Scenario 2 explores how tone is easily misinterpreted in virtual settings. A developer posts a terse chat message, short, direct, with no context. A teammate in another region reads it as hostile, and an escalation begins brewing. The constraint here is that cultural differences shape how tone is read. In some regions, brevity is seen as efficient. In others, it comes across as dismissive. Add in the pressure of a tight deadline, and misunderstandings can spiral quickly. The artifacts that matter here are the team's working agreements, the communications plan, and notes from retrospectives where norms are reinforced. These are what help teams recalibrate when intent and perception diverge. The options reflect different instincts. Option A is to ignore the conflict, hoping the team sorts it out themselves. Option B is to facilitate a short clarification call, restate chat etiquette, and confirm the action items in writing. Option C is to reprimand the developer publicly, sending a strong message but damaging trust. Option D is to escalate to HR immediately, bypassing team-level resolution. PMI expects the correct answer to be option B: clarify quickly, restate norms, and capture decisions. It respects both parties, addresses the root cause, and documents agreements, ignoring risks, escalation. Public reprimand or premature escalation creates harm without solving the misunderstanding. Artifacts demonstrate the resolution. The working agreement is updated to restate chat etiquette, perhaps emphasizing context, polite greetings, or use of emojis to clarify tone. The communications plan reflects that urgent clarifications should occur by call rather than chat alone. The decision log records the action items confirmed. This preserves transparency and shows stakeholders that cultural differences were managed constructively. PMI situational stems will often tempt you with ignore or punish answers, but the professional path is respectful facilitation anchored in documented norms. Scenario 3 deals with access and security friction, another frequent challenge in global projects. A partner team is blocked because compliance rules slow their access approvals, work is stuck, and frustration rises. The constraints are serious. Least privilege rules must be respected, and an audit is only 2 weeks away. The artifacts that matter are the access policy, the onboarding checklist, and the exception log. These provide the tools to manage compliance while still unblocking progress. The ethical manager finds a way to enable productivity without bypassing controls. Options here test your instincts. Option A is to share credentials temporarily. Option B is to provide a sanitized dataset while fast-tracking access through policy, log the exception, and schedule an audit review. Option C is to tell the partner team to simply wait, which wastes time. Option D is to move the work to your team permanently, creating bottlenecks and resentment. The professional answer is Option B. Unblock responsibly by following policy, document the exception transparently, and ensure evidence is ready for the upcoming audit. PM. I will always reward solutions that balance compliance with progress. Artifacts again provide defensibility. The access request log shows the fast-tracked request. The exception log records the temporary dataset, including who approved it and how it was sanitized. The onboarding checklist confirms when permanent access is granted. These records demonstrate integrity. You didn't bend the rules or hide the exception. You managed it openly. PMI's exam may tempt you with just share credentials options, but these always fail compliance. The correct choice is to use policy mechanisms, document exceptions, and provide evidence. These scenarios highlight cultural nuance, compliance discipline, and artifact rigor as pillars of virtual team success. Tone misreads require sensitivity and facilitation, not blame or escalation. Access frictions require policy-driven solutions, not shortcuts. In both cases, artifacts are the anchors that prove decisions were made fairly, transparently, and responsibly. PMI's situational questions test whether you choose temporary fixes or systemic, defensible solutions. The correct path is always the one that preserves integrity across time zones, cultures, and compliance contexts. Exam pitfalls in virtual team scenarios follow familiar patterns. The more meetings reflex appears again over scheduling instead of designing async clarity. Shadow tools pop up when teams bypass the agreed single source of truth. Decisions go undocumented when managers assume verbal agreement is enough. Credential sharing is another recurring trap, framed as temporary but always unethical. And incidents without ownership, where handoffs fail and no one takes charge, are a frequent failure point. PMI expects you to resist these traps by reinforcing the heuristic, standardize asynchronous practices, use minimal overlap, and maintain a single source of truth for decisions and evidence. Consider a mini scenario to reinforce this. Two teams in different regions discover they've built duplicate versions of the same feature. Ownership was unclear, and the backlog was fragmented across tools. The best next action is to consolidate the backlog into one system, clarify ownership in working agreements, impose work-in-progress limits to prevent overcommitment, and schedule a cross-region demo cadence so duplication is caught early. Updating the working agreement with these practices ensures it doesn't happen again. This systemic fix respects people's efforts while addressing the real root cause: lack of artifact discipline. Artifacts again show integrity. A consolidated backlog eliminates shadow tools. Updated working agreements show who owns what. Demo notes in the repository provide evidence that duplication was reviewed. By capturing this system improvement, you build a culture of prevention rather than punishment. PM. I will reward answers that create systemic fixes rather than blaming individuals. The heuristic holds: async, first clarity, minimal overlap, one source of truth. That rhythm is what makes global teams sustainable. The quick playbook for virtual teams and cross-cultural situations distills these lessons. First, standardize asynchronous handoffs with clear acceptance criteria and templates. Second, protect inclusion by leveling language, rotating meeting times fairly, and providing summaries in writing. Third, maintain compliance by following access policies, logging exceptions, and never sharing credentials. Fourth, handle cultural misreads with respectful facilitation and updated norms, not punishment or escalation. Fifth, consolidate artifacts into one source of truth, ensuring decisions are recorded once and accessible to all. Sixth, monitor flow and review norms on cadence to refine the system. Teaching teams to summarize decisions and acceptance criteria clearly is the keystone habit. When a STEM asks you to summarize in one sentence, that's PMI's way of signaling that clarity is a safeguard. Short, clear summaries prevent rework, reduce cultural misunderstandings, and improve trust across time zones. By modeling this habit and embedding it into working agreements, you reinforce responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. These values are not abstract. They come alive in how global teams write, clarify, and document. The closing reflection is that virtual projects succeed or fail not because of technology, but because of human systems. When working agreements, artifacts, and norms are strong, global teams thrive. When shortcuts, undocumented changes, or misaligned cultures dominate, fatigue and mistrust follow. PMI situational questions test whether you choose the systemic, respectful fix or the shortcut. The professional answer is always artifact-driven clarity, cultural inclusion, and documented evidence. That is the ethical foundation of sustainable global delivery. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.